think the way, there's lots of ways to think about it, but if you talk to like the regulator in El Salvador, they would say, Juan, who's actually Canadian, from Sarnia, he would say in El Salvador they look at Bitcoin as a currency and they regulate it as a currency. Everything else is software. And so when you think about what a blockchain is, in its simplest form, it is just moving data on the internet. Humans attribute value to that data. We have token, and you and I think about it, it's a $100 token or a 10-cent token, but the reality is just data that's moving around a blockchain securely, faster and cheaper and instantly, and it settles instantly. But I think, this concept of Bitcoin is something I spend a lot of time, even in the government. I spend a lot of time in the government helping our elected officials understand this concept of Bitcoin and why the world is moving towards a decentralized economy. And one easy way to think about it is over the last 10 years in Canada, our government has printed or added 80% more money into our M2 money supply. So if you had a cup of coffee and I came over and added 80% more water, that's sort of like the quality of our dollar. And imagine, I hope that all of you stay in Canada and build on chain. And imagine you did that. Imagine you spent your life here over the next 30, 40 years and you saved everything that you had in a denominated Canadian dollar. And imagine our government continued printing at 8% a year. When I was growing up, I did my sort of CFA and went to grad school in finance, and I spent 10 years helping companies buy companies and sell companies. And people used to talk about a rate of return, like did you earn 5% or did you earn 8%? And if you're a portfolio manager, you think about benchmarks, right? You build a portfolio and you compare that against a benchmark. It's probably what a lot of you are learning in school, but frankly, that doesn't really matter that much anymore, how much return you're earning relative to the purchasing power that you're losing every year by your currency being devalued. And what's happened around the world, clearly you talk about, down south, but the democratic system in the world, one of the core reasons why, Satoshi, he published the Coinbase, the first block on the blockchain on a day when the Bank of England was printing money, was to reinforce this concept that we have systems around the world now that simply cannot afford to pay for the goods and services for their citizens. Governments all over the world will continue printing money. Our government in Canada here recently, they'll probably raise another $8 billion to fund more growth. And so how is the system going to change? And so for all of you, I think one of the core questions that you probably want to think about in your life as an individual is trying to store your own value, right? You're all going to go out and work really, really hard. You're smart people. You're going to go out and work. You're going to earn money, value. Think about it as value. You're going to exchange your brain power and all your hard work for value. We've lived in a world where the last 50 years has been kind of weird if you think of the last 1,000 years. If you go back 1,000 years, we walked around with everything that we've had in value, right? We literally walked around with it. And then we gradually moved to the system over the last 50 years where for some reason, humans have decided that we want to centralize everything inside of very small, powerful intermediaries that control everything, right? And it's the most centralized that we've ever been, and Canada certainly is one of the most centralized economies in the world. And so now we're sort of shifting back. That pendulum is swinging back into decentralization, back to where we should be, which is, I believe, the United States believes that all of us human beings have this inherent right to self-custody. And once you really think about that right, which is, I believe that you, as a human being on this planet, have a right to go and work hard and exchange that for value, and I believe that you have a right to store that yourself without anyone else's permission. I believe you don't need anyone else's permission to store that value, use that value, exchange that value for the things that you should, and put that money to work for you. And today we live in a system where, because of that centralization, banks effectively have an opportunity in Canada. They have a superpower to take your money, your paychecks that default into this system, multiply that by 12 through fractional reserve lending, make money in the public markets, and then return a profit to shareholders. And so citizens in Canada, we pay banks monthly fees, we give them all of our money, they multiply it by 12 and make money for shareholders. And what are we getting? Like, where's the value exchange today when when we have 7 billion smartphones in the world that can access a decentralized technology and use the best, latest and greatest technology with the cheapest fees, instant settlement, all the things that you guys I'm sure appreciate about a blockchain, which is available today.
I couldn't have said it any better. I think for everybody here might be caught off a little off guard. I think when you get into the weeds of crypto, or blockchain, it's very much a philosophy. I think if you're sitting down and you're expecting a different talk today, it is very much reflected on how you think about the world, how you think about money. And a few of the thoughts I had while you were speaking is that 90% of our currency is already digital. And so a lot of people don't take the time to think about, why would I want, let's say Bitcoin as an alternative currency? It's, what if the electricity goes out? 90% of our dollars are already, they're digital. They don't exist. They've never been printed because of fractional reserve banking. So we have bigger issues if the electricity for the entire world goes out. And someone might say, hey, there's gold, but how are you going to cut your gold in half? How do you know what the price of gold is? It doesn't really work. So other than Bitcoin, it's just tangible goods. You'd go back to barter trade. And I think a great example of this was one of our neighbors does mortgages, and he wanted to pull out $10,000 out of his account that he's banked with for multiple years. And they just wouldn't do it. He said, why do you need this money? He said, it's for my business. I said, what business? He was there for over an hour, and they said, we need time to get your money, because they hold very little money actually at the banks because of the fractional reserve banking. So to shed some light on what you said earlier, when you have crypto, when you have Bitcoin, you custody your own crypto. You hold it in your phone, in your wallet. There's nobody stopping you from taking it out. My neighbor couldn't get out his money. And that's what you see with a lot of bank runs. And I think out of the top 10 countries that have adopted crypto, 5 out of those 10 have hyperinflation. And so that's where Bitcoin comes in, capped supply. You can read about the economics of it. But that's the difference, where it's not just an investment vehicle, it's needed. And I think that's what we see in El Salvador. And I know when we were talking about this talk earlier, the title that you proposed was Canada's Path to Crypto, the next steps to unlock economic freedom. So what can we do as students, and what can we do as Canadians to have more conversations like this? Because I feel like this is probably, for a lot of students, the first time that they've thought about Bitcoin or crypto in this way.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm going to talk a little bit more about Coinbase later, but one of the things that Coinbase has invested in more than any other company in the world that's focused on crypto is clear rules. And when you have a new technology, I think, like Esther was saying previously, I think it's a really good point just to understand. Most people, it's really easy for them to understand this concept, especially in government. So yesterday I was on the Hill in Ottawa, meeting with departments of government. We had a full day meetings trying to explain blockchain and infrastructure to folks in the government, and this concept of blockchain as a software, as infrastructure, that should be accessible for everybody. Our government right now is putting a significant effort in building infrastructure, figuring out how can we build our economy back. And blockchain is, I think about it as just infrastructure that should be available for everybody in a decentralized sort of way. I think our government, I think the opportunity for our government to provide clear rules is the most important unlock that we've been working on for over a decade. And we have been helping governments all over the world, including Canada, define what crypto means for them. And I would say in Canada, we're in a very unique situation in the sense that we don't have an elected official today in Canada that's in charge of crypto. Right, we don't have one elected official with a mandate to care about this technology. I always ask every elected official I meet, is crypto on your top 50 list? And I've never heard yes from one, and I meet a lot of people in the government. And so we have just not prioritized this technology, and what we're seeing around the world, like in the US, take your politics aside just for a moment. What we saw in the US during the last election was an incredible movement for elected officials to learn about blockchain technology and understand the benefits of it. I think a lot of governments naturally understand the risks. You guys are read social media and the news, the scams, and there's all these risks associated with new technology, and that's really obvious. What we really haven't done, a lot of governments haven't taken the time to do, is understand all the benefits. And once you understand the benefits, you realize they drastically outweigh the costs. of the risks. And that's exactly how we think about AI. I'm sure all of you use AI. You know that it's not perfect. You know it makes mistakes. We accept those risks. We accept the risk of using this technology. We accept that it's not perfect. But for some reason, when we think about other technologies, many governments operate with a mindset of zero risk, or are they like risk off? It's like a risk off mindset where it's like, we can't do anything until we figure out every single detail. And so what's happening around the world in the US is that all these elected officials came together. 80% of the Congress is pro-crypto, 90% of the Senate, and now you're seeing for the first time a bipartisan, so both parties coming together and producing legislation. And one of them was recently called the Genius Act, which for the first time clarified what a stablecoin was in the United States, and that was a forcing function for governments all over the world to realize that crypto's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. You can't turn Bitcoin off. Nobody, like no white man in a suit can turn Bitcoin off, right? It's like a decentralized technology that runs all over the world, and it's here to stay. And once governments appreciate that it's here to stay and it's not going anywhere, I think a lot of governments now are in the mindset of trying to figure out how to embrace this technology and do it well. So I think the next, you guys are at school. It's such an amazing time right now. Just to give you like some broader context, 85% of jurisdictions around the world are going to introduce legislation and frameworks around crypto assets and blockchain technology in the next year, right? Just like that. And then all of a sudden, institutions and banks and governments are going to start diversifying and exploring this technology. And what that's going to do, it's going to help people like you innovate and build solutions. And that's been the biggest problem, and why most graduates from this university leave the country and build blockchain technology outside of Canada, is because the rules here aren't clear. If you wanted to build a stablecoin in Canada, there's no path to get issued. If you went to the government or a lawyer and said, I got $100 million in the bank, I want to build a Canadian denominated stablecoin, they would say, you could try A, here are the risks, but there's no path. Here's B, here's C, but there's no actual way to do this effectively here in Canada. And so we're on the cusp of that changing all over the world, where people like yourselves that have the ability to build software, build companies, are going to have clear rules where you're going to know exactly what you need to do. You're not going to be afraid of getting sued or going to jail. You're going to understand that this technology is real, and you're going to be able to build and innovate. I think we're entering that cycle. Like I'm a lot older than you guys, but when I was young, I didn't have the internet. Like I was on BBSs late at night with my brothers, connecting to computers individually before the internet came out. And when the internet came out, everyone kind of learned what the internet was. My parents never thought they would be on the internet. That's exactly what we're going through right now with blockchain technology. People are just starting to realize, wow, this is a huge, huge thing. This is a big deal. And another great way of understanding why it's a big deal is because we all know AI is going to be a monster, like transformational technology. But what's really important to understand is that underneath AI is going to sit blockchain infrastructure that's going to create the trust layer to help AI know what's real and what's not real. And so blockchains will form a really integral part of how AI moves trillions of dollars around the web. We had one of our senior executives here in Ottawa yesterday. We were in an Uber, and he pulled out his phone in the Uber and he started chatting to this bot. And he was explaining to me that he put $200 into this chatbot on the Base app, and this AI is investing for him and making him about 8%. Right? He's earning 8% on it. It's $200. He's just experimenting with it. But we're entering a world where AI has access to his wallet. It knows it's him, and it knows to go out and check what's real and what's not real and make investments. And so we're entering this really, really interesting phase where there's going to be a really powerful intersection between these two technologies.
Yeah, there's a few things. I'll start with the AI portion first. I think we're already seeing it. And I think even on Twitter, people can deploy coins with just a tweet, and it's instantly seeded with liquidity. And that coin could represent anything you'd like it to. It could be equity. It could just be a meme coin. It could be whatever you'd like it to be. And I think that I agree that with the comeuppance of AI, they will need ways to pay for microtransactions. They'll be paying for you. And right now, I think it's very safeguarded. It's sort of within a box, or maybe a TE. And I think very, very soon it's going to be very normal that we have AI agents taking transactions for us. And I think that's the beauty of blockchain, whether it's what Esther is talking about, or for AI, or for payments across the world. It's all blockchain. And so I think that it's so malleable for students that it's great. So the one thing that I also wanted to bring up was your time at Shopify and now your time at Coinbase. You have stayed here in Canada. And I also know that Jordan in the crowd over there would talk about the brain drain, right? So we have the Waterloo Toronto corridor, and we have this brain drain, and a lot of Waterloo students end up going to the States. What are the arguments that these bright students should stay here, and what is that path forward, and what are you seeing in Parliament? That is there change happening, and hopefully can we turn this around?
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm a super proud Canadian. I won't talk about all the Canadian tattoos on my body, but I really do love this country a lot. And I've lived all over the world. I lived in Asia. I lived in very, very poor parts of the world where people didn't have access to the internet. I've lived all over the U.S. and Canada. I've lived in probably over 20 cities. I'm one of those people that just chased like great opportunities for work. And so I think it's important to get out into the world and experience different cultures and different ways of working. I think it's important as part of your journey. But ultimately, I founded a company in the Valley after we raised our round. It was really important to Nick and I that we bring that company back. We moved that company to Vancouver. And then after we sold it, I joined Shopify and had an amazing 6 years there. I worked for Harley, who probably a lot of you guys know. I worked for the CFO there for 4 years, helping build out all the sort of money teams and corporate finance and FP&A, and sort of helping buying companies, investing, raising money, all those types of functions within Shopify. And it was just a blast. It was just a rocket ship. I remember coming to Waterloo when we decided to build the office here, and we set up Shopify Plus back in the day. So I spent a lot of time here in Waterloo with a Shopify crew, and obviously we hired hundreds, thousands of people out of Waterloo. I would say in terms of Canada, like the real reasons to stay here is that things are changing. Like they can't really get any worse. I think we have I don't know if you guys know this, but we have like the least productive advanced economy in the OECD. We have some of the worst incentives for people to stay here financially in terms of tax, in terms of like all the reasons to like pay money to the government. But I think we have a couple things that are really, really powerful, and that is like a renewed sense of our sovereignty, a renewed government that I can assure you that this new government is very different. I think Mark Carney and his team I spend a lot of time meeting them, and they're genuinely, like a lot of them have, I'll say, I don't know if this is being recorded, I'll say lots of people I meet in the government admit to me now that they have a Coinbase account. That hasn't been the case over the last few years, and I met these people before, but all of a sudden now they're telling me that, yeah, you know what, I want to tell you something, I actually do have a Coinbase account. And so we're seeing a government now that's sort of embracing change, right? Embracing an opportunity to realize, like, we can't just keep doing this. We can't just keep printing money and subsidizing businesses. We need to help builders commercialize and monetize outside of this country. And ultimately, that's how countries are built. They're built by building technologies for the world and monetizing outside of countries and bringing new capital into an economy. That's how economies get stronger, is that they increase the amount of capital and inflow and activity. And blockchain and this new world that we're moving into is like the perfect reason to not really care where you work. Of course, in the US, if you're looking for a job, there's benefits of like compensation. If you want to build a business, Canada's a great place to build because I think all the builders are uniting to help each other more than we've ever helped. I think a lot of entrepreneurs in this country have been quite quiet. I think like a kind of a self-criticism of some, the leadership culture in this country is that if you run a business, or if you're a CEO, if you're an executive, you should just not talk about anything but your business. You don't really have a public voice. Canadians don't put a lot of weight on business leadership and entrepreneurs, but that's changing. Like if you think of the US, they have a, it's a different world, but entrepreneurs are viewed very differently around the world. And we have a culture here historically where I don't think we've celebrated entrepreneurs enough. I don't think we've given a lot of the builders the respect that they deserve. And I'll tell you, like, I've been in this role for 3 years. I've met hundreds and hundreds of people in crypto all over the world. There are tons of Canadians building in crypto, and a lot of them don't live here, but there are so many Canadians that are building around the world. And so I think it's a great time to start a company. I think there's never been better opportunity to actually connect with people that want to build. And the benefit of building on chain, like if you guys, I'll chat a little bit later about Base, but Base is, you build for the world now. Coinbase is an interesting company because most banks operate within a jurisdiction. I think of Coinbase as potentially the first biggest global company in the world that can literally service billions of people and help billions of people achieve economic freedom, which is our mission. And that opportunity to build products here in Waterloo and in Canada for the world is exactly what this country needs. So I'd absolutely encourage you to live a good life and go out and see the world, but I think Canada is going to become increasingly a stronger place for us to build and to monetize, because I think incentives here are changing.
I think there's lot to note there, and before I go too far deep, we are going to have to switch gears in a second. Before we do that, what was, again, like that moment within blockchain or crypto that struck you where you were like, this is what I want to work in, and you sort of take a little bit of that philosophy and apply it into your life? Maybe you can share that moment with students and they can relate to it.
Because this is not, I'm not gonna get too emotional here or anything, but this is a little up in the sky, but this is real for me. If you think of the last sort of 50 years, I think one of the things humans have been figuring out maybe for the first time is this concept of equality, right? We've my grandmother, I was talking to my mom yesterday, she was saying my grandma was the first class at Queen's University, right? And you start thinking of equality and what humans are doing, and I think financial inequality, if you were on a spaceship, right, and you flew to Earth for the first time and you looked at Earth and said, what's not fair? One of the most obvious things that you would realize is that wealth inequality in this world is just, it's unbelievable. And it's traveling in a direction that is I think for a lot of people concerning. As I mentioned, I've lived in very, very poor parts of the world for extended periods of time, and the world's just not fair. And for me, I think the opportunity for, I'm an active controller 8. That's my, if you guys do your psychological profile. And so injustice is something my brain personally has struggles with deeply. When I see injustice, my immediate reaction is to fix it. And when I see and I've been privileged to work for a lot of great companies and raise billions of dollars, buy companies, do lots of great things with money. And the one thing that's always been consistent is money is just not, the system's not designed to provide equal access to people around the world. It's completely oriented to service a specific population of the world to help them leverage their wealth to create more wealth. And I really do believe in the mission of Coinbase. That's why I joined this company. I do believe in the opportunity to increase economic freedom in the world. There's 7 billion smartphones in the world, and nothing's stopping people from coming on chain. Remittance is actually just I'll touch on this really quickly. Remittance is actually a great example. I'll give two quick examples before we go. 1 in 5 Canadians remit money abroad and pay between 6 and 12% to send their family and friends money. We live in a world today where you could click different buttons on your phone and send your friends and family 6 to 12% more money a year for a disadvantaged population. That's happening today. So you ask, so why isn't that happening? Why aren't more people doing it? And that is just the mindset of people struggling to change. And I think Canadians in general need to embrace this opportunity to change. And so that's one thing. The second is, I was at dinner last night with a group of people, and somebody gave a really good story about an entrepreneur that they talked to in Ottawa. And this entrepreneur was saying that if Visa was an employee at their company, it would be the most expensive employee that they had. And that like really struck me, because I think it's a really clear way of understanding sort of where the power imbalance is. If you started a business today, you're taxed basically 3% for collecting your revenue. If you take that 3% as a percentage of a profit margin of a healthy business, think like 10 to 15%. If you're doing really well, you're making like 15% profit in an average business. And so 3 out of 15 is a significant portion of your overall profit. And so I think things are going to change super quickly. I'm really excited to be a part of the journey. And I hope that you guys, as you think about your path, consider on-chain.
Yeah. With that being said, I think, stable coins, that's exactly like Walmart. I think SpaceX already uses it. Apple's looking into it. Robinhood already uses it. And you can send money instantly. A great example I'll just leave people with is we actually recently did a policy hackathon in Harvard. I would also like to say on behalf of Waterloo Blockchain that if there's anything that we can do in terms of Parliament and like crafting ideas, doing any sort of sprints, 100% down to support, and I would love to contribute. But the main thing being was that we won a $5,000 prize, our team. And everybody in the States uses Venmo. So we're like, okay, we'll get a Venmo account. For some reason, they couldn't send it. Okay, so we'll get PayPal. KYC'd, gave them all my information. They're probably gonna sell it, who knows. Still didn't work. It ended up taking us over a month and a half to get payment. And they tried like every day. And they had an account with their school because they're a club. They couldn't send it from there. And I just kept on thinking, I was like, love Harvard Blockchain. Thankfully, we're actually not a WUSA club, so we can have crypto. They have to abide by the rules of their school. They can't hold crypto. But if they just had stablecoins, Bitcoin, Solana, anything, 1 second, like whoever here wants crypto, come find me after. I'll send you $0.1 and it'll take a fraction of a second. And I think that's the beauty of what you said of the remittance payments. And I would just encourage people to look at, like you said, the devaluing of your dollar, what happened after we went off the gold standard, and what you can do to sort of take a role in that. And I think that's what Coinbase offers. Whether you choose to use them or not, all I can say is that Coinbase is the most reputable exchange. So that's personally what I would use, and that's why we went out of our way to try to secure this partnership, going back and forth, because we felt that this is the best way to offer this to students. And Coinbase went out of their way to give you guys this offer. I'm committed my life to crypto, so I don't really care if you buy any crypto. I don't care about Coinbase's bottom line, but I've decided to dedicate my life to it. And so I'm really happy that we were able to have this conversation today. And before we switch gears, can we just have a round of applause, please, for Lucas? So I would actually like to call down 3 people to the stage. Lucas, if you need a second. Okay, so we have 3 people who were co-ops here, and I just wanted to invite them down just for 5 minutes, and before you have your own time to talk about Coinbase and the hiring opportunities that we're providing, because there is a form. When you scan this, there is a form below it to get connected with Coinbase. So if you go to there, below it, there is a section to scan. We're also going to post it after the talk. It's for all University of Waterloo students. Coinbase has hired so many students from Waterloo, and I've only heard good things. So to sort of further promote that, I want to call down 3 people who were Coinbase co-ops to come talk with Lucas about their time and what it means to work at Coinbase. In the chairs, so we got 4.
What's up, man? Good to see you. How are you?
Good. How about you?
Good to see you, man. How are you? Hey, what's up? Good to see you.
Say whatever. And yeah.
Okay, for sure.
Yeah. Do you want to grab a seat?
Yeah, sure. Hey everyone, my name's Cole Dermott. I'm a CS BBA student at Waterloo and Wilfrid Laurier. I was interning as a software engineer intern over at Coinbase this summer on their business-to-business payments team.
Hello everyone, I'm Yusuf. I'm a 4th-year system design engineering student, and this summer I was an associate product management intern on the stablecoins team.
Hey guys, my name is Alex. I'm a 3B CS student, and this summer I was on the base team working on the base app that you might have heard Lucas mention.
A lot of variety.
So I don't know, maybe we can start with just, maybe you can tell a little bit about what your experience was at Coinbase and what you were building, and maybe you can just kind of go over what was easy and what was hard. What did you like about it?
For sure. So this was actually my 5th co-op, and I'd say the biggest thing about Coinbase that, first off, I really enjoyed was the fact that you had a lot of agency at this company. I've been at big companies before, and I haven't ever had the opportunity to really put myself out there and do things I want to do on top of the work I was doing, and Coinbase gave me that. And through that, I was able to make a good impression at the company and also achieve a lot of what I wanted to. So on my main team, what I worked on was the off-chain, so actually fiat payments, for business-to-business transactions. So I was working on workflows to orchestrate, speed that up, and basically make it seamless. And that was where I spent the majority of my time. But aside from that, I also had opportunities to help ideate about the future of crypto and where we think it's heading over the next 5 years with some senior leadership at the company. And as an intern, that's something that was incredibly valuable to me, honestly.
I definitely echo Cole's sentiment. I think a lot of us feel like our summer was quite impactful. So from a product's perspective, something I really enjoyed about Coinbase is that it's a product-led company. And something that I got exposed to is a DRI culture. For those who don't know what that is, Coinbase has a DRI culture where there's a directly responsible individual for the projects. And over the summer, I was actually a DRI for a few projects. Well, what does that really mean? It means you do have a lot of autonomy and ownership over the work you do. So I got to work with a lot of different stakeholders throughout the summer, but the amount of ownership that I got was not something I've experienced at other companies I've worked at. Second, the scale. A lot of the projects that I worked at were global projects. They affected many different countries and different regions and hundreds of thousands of people. And I think working at projects at that scale just required a different level of, was a different challenge I wasn't used to that really amplified my skill set as a product manager.
Yep. And just adding on to all 3 of us, I think I definitely agree with the agency part. And I think as part of the base team, one really big thing that stood out to me was like this pace that we ship code and sort of moved. And so like, for example, we would see like features as part of the base app launch, like I would work on something on Tuesday and it would be on production like by Friday. And so these really fast development cycles was something that couldn't be possible without really leveraging and fully leveraging AI like throughout the process. And so I think another big part was really embracing AI as part of the development work. And that was something that really stood out to me as well.
I always tell people that hiring people is the hardest part of my job. It really is. I've taken over a year to hire some roles, some product manager roles, like interviewed 40, 50 people type of thing. Very, very challenging. How would you guys describe the talent, like opportunity to work with the talent pool at Coinbase, and how do you guys think about the opportunity to work on like you said, a global technology with what I think of as sort of a deep expertise across a whole bunch of different domains?
Yeah, for sure. So touching on like the broader talent at Coinbase, I think something I noticed is that every single person I talked to was A, incredibly intelligent, and B, incredibly helpful. And that could be for anything, whether that be work-specific questions I had, career-wise, anything more broadly. It was a very strong, collaborative group. And I've been at my other jobs, I've had people who were individually helpful, but I've never been in this culture where every single individual wanted to help you, but also every single individual was this smart and forward-looking. And that's something that really stood out about the company, was that each person you talked to, they had innovative ideas. They had places they wanted to go, they had ideas to build, and everything. And the amount of drive that permeated every aspect of the business was something that was, I'd say, felt deeply.
Yeah, absolutely. Once again, echoing Cole's sentiments here. Something I knew going into Coinbase is I saw their tenants. I mean, they're public. One of it was top talent. And going into the company, I really understood what that really means. The people I worked with were genuinely experts in their field. And what was really interesting is their willingness to help. And the way I can sum up working with such a team that is an expert at what they do is that you learn a lot from the projects you work on, but a lot of my learning came from the people I worked with, from those conversations. And secondly, just giving you the product aspect, there were around 16 product managers, interns this summer, and we had our own gatherings. Coinbase takes a very good care of you. They have a lot of events. And there was a lot of learning from their experiences, because you get to see these different sides of the business. We're all working on different teams, and that collaboration aspect was really powerful for me. But definitely top talent at Coinbase.
Yep, I couldn't agree more with what everyone said. Another really big thing that stood out to me was sort of the lack of, I want to say, like, hierarchy or like politics within the organization that I noticed. So like throughout my co-op, like you can easily reach out to like top level execs. Basically like the director of engineering literally just like DM me one day. He's like, oh, can you like work on this? I'm like, sure. And so there isn't like this like sort of hierarchy where like you need to, you know, like first talk to like some senior engineer who then, you know, escalates it to this next person, and all of this sort of like delay is like you can just get things done and talk to who you need to, like stakeholders you need, etc. And I think that's something that really, really stood out to me, and like I was really impressed by. That I don't think you can find at any other company of this size.
If for those of you who have not worked at a founder-led company before, working for a founder is quite different. I've had the privilege of working, at Shopify for Toby for years. Had an unbelievable experience working for, one of the smartest people I've ever met. And now, working inside of Coinbase, Brian is just an incredible leader who's championed so many incredible opportunities. How would you guys describe the difference working inside of a founder-led company?
I'd say the biggest thing comes down to, in my experience, direction, and the way that direction, I'm going to use this word again, permeates every single employee. At a lot of other companies, when it's not founder-led, I think you have teams that are driven to missions, and the quality of those teams and the drive towards their mission is very dependent on the individual manager involved. When you have a founder-led company, though, I think you see consistently that each individual team has this shared mind where they're all pushing towards the same thing. And the stronger that founder's vision, the more they work with their company, as Brian did, honestly, the more you're going to be able to, I think, see the pace that Coinbase has, the talent level that Coinbase has, and further the level of execution that they have.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess one of the biggest differences, so I've worked at startups in the past, and I think something that happens in a company when you have the founder involved is it keeps the company focused on the mission. And what does that look like practically? Is that you're obviously on different teams working on different goals, but we all have that mission of pushing the business forward. And I remember there were times where I found a problem that was not necessarily directly tied to my team or the team owned that problem, but we were all empowered to take on problems from other teams. And I think that comes from that mission-focused company. And also the second thing is Brian is very down to earth. I've had the chance to meet him while I was there, and he's very involved, asks questions, and you just feel like this is really a company that is working together towards the mission of making an open financial system.
Yep, and just adding on, like particularly, I think one thing that stood out was the product managers within all my teams. I think I've never seen product managers that were that sort of really mission focused and all have this sense of direction that, like, with anything that I would have like questions with from the engineering side, like I think I have like a lot of trust in the PMs in terms of, execution and sort of what the next goals are.
Amazing. Well, thanks guys for all your work at Coinbase. I'm sure all the great things that you guys have done. Hopefully you guys will see you there. We'll see you back for a long time. Appreciate you guys coming out and sharing some words with us. Give these guys a big round of applause.
All right, with that being said, before Lucas comes back up later, we have pizza all the way back there. So before you move, what I would like to do is everybody on this left side here can walk around the side and make a clean line to the side. I would love that. Same thing on this side. If you could walk around to the side and go through the back, just so we can keep this middle as clear as possible, I'd really appreciate it. We'll resume in about 5 minutes. where we have 2 more alumni speaking, and we will also have Lucas speaking and Jacob. Thank you. Also, don't worry about networking. You'll all get a chance to talk to our awesome speakers if you stick around just for about 45 more minutes.
But like, that's why no one else is gonna network, so I should go now and figure it out. Oh shit, dude. Okay, does he know? Can I like name drop you? Like, oh, I work with Konfer. Do I say Konfer? You can say you just talk to the Nasha over there. Wait, what? You can just say like you talk to Konfer over there. I talk to you? What do you have there? Sorry. You can say I'm from Konfer. You just talk to Nasha. Oh, wait, you talk to him just okay. Right. Oh. Going to some type of I don't think okay. Are you coming? Yeah. No. Wait, are we 2 minutes? Yeah. We're traveling all around Waterloo. Yeah. That's a global sensation. Yeah. Why is the part of Victoria Park? That's right. Yeah, Stanley Park. Victoria Park's fine. Yeah, should we go like 30 minutes? Okay, thank you so much again. Nothing like I'm not sick. This one makes it work. It's just for things, yeah, not sleeping and probably like I was up to like 2 a.m. Yeah, but it's fun. If you, after you get your pizza, if you can make your way back to your seat, we're going to talk with Liam of Optimism, which is actually what Base Chain runs on top of, and also Martin of Zirkit, both alumni, and we'll also have Lucas back, and you'll be able to ask all of them questions afterwards. So please stick around after you get your pizza. Thank you all so much.
What's up, guys? We have more pizzas up there, so take as many as you want. We have a lot of more boxes, so please just finish it up. And we also have water bottles there on the right side, so please feel to grab a bottle if you need a water.
Hey, oh, whoa. If I could just get everybody to return to their seat, we will have networking afterwards. So we have about 60 seconds before we need Lucas back on stage. So if we could just give him a second to decompress and get ready, I would really appreciate it. Again, all the speakers are going to be sticking around afterwards for a Q&A. So let's try to keep it moving here. Thank you so much. Oh. Coming up afterwards, we have Conrad, Jacob, and Lucas. What the hell's happening? Yeah, everything's on the schedule that I shared. No, Lucas and I are asking questions. Hold on, I just need to see if Lucas has. All right, everybody, if you could please make your way to your seats. I don't want to ask again. We got to get this show back on the road. We're already behind schedule. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much.
Right as I was talking to him,
He asked you to get ready to go over there, so I was going to myself.
try it again.
All right, I would like to get everybody back in their seats, and Lucas is going to come back on stage to give a presentation about Coinbase, Base, and everything to do with Coinbase. So can we please get everybody back seated? Can you go up and tell people? Could you guys go up and tell people? Just one more time, asking people to make your way back to your seats so we can have Lucas back on stage. All right. Without further ado, I would like to have Lucas Matheson back on stage. One more round of applause. Feel free to plug in. Oh. Sorry, I just plugged it in. Misunderstood you. All good. It should be. Yeah. So we like started and it should be. That's alright. You want this one? Oh shit.
This one?
Yep, just that one. And we're good.
All right, beauty. I put some slides together for you guys. I won't try not to repeat myself. Let's see, loading.
The Wi-Fi. It might be best if we just keep it just full. Maybe just press green. Sorry, and make it full screen. You just press the green button or that. Yeah. Might just have to rock it like this.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, so I was asked to talk a little bit about Coinbase, working at Coinbase, my journey, Base. I'm going to share, I kept some slides from a presentation I did last year. Those are my 2025 predictions, so I thought it'd be just fun to put those up, see what came true. And then I thought I'd talk a little bit about Stand with Crypto. I know there's some signs up here, Stand with Crypto. It's an important thing that we're doing here in Canada and around the world. Just quick fun fact about me, 25 years ago, that's where I lived, here in Waterloo. I finished high school a year early, didn't know what to do. My brother was here at Waterloo, and so I ended up moving in with my brother's ex-girlfriend and 6 girls. Changed my life. Grew up with 2 brothers. They taught me how to shop, do laundry. It was honestly one of the best times of my life. I worked at a restaurant called Mussolini's that turned into Filthy McNasties. I have no idea what it is now. But at an amazing time here in Waterloo. About me, yeah, I'm a super proud Canadian. I think I mentioned that. I lived around the world, went through that. I'm married. I have three kids, 2 teenage boys and a girl, and I have 2 dogs at home. One of them really is the love of my life, one of those 2 dogs. In my professional life, I think I went through it, but I sort of was fascinated with, I've always been fascinated with value. I think that's sort of I've always been obsessed with trying to understand how people, the psychology. I was raised by a psychologist and I married a psychologist, but I've always been fascinated with the concept of value. So if you ever want to talk to me about how much something is worth, anything, we could have a great conversation for hours about it. I've spent 10 years of my life trying to figure out how to value companies, intellectual property, businesses, to buy businesses. I worked in bankruptcy a lot, so how do you rip a business apart into its little pieces and maximize the value of it? And then how do you raise money and think about deploying capital inside of a business? So I've always been really curious about it. I did my CFA. I went to grad school in finance. Worked for a couple public traded companies, helping them buy other businesses. And eventually I was tired, honestly, of working for old guys in suits that couldn't change. I worked for a bunch of IPPs, and so I mentioned I quit my job with my friend, moved to the Valley, went through 500 startups. We started a company in 3D printing, helping connect people who are designing 3D printable models around the world. We sold it to Formlabs in Boston, and then joined Shopify, went through that. I've sort of gone through all this stuff, actually. Let's talk about working at Coinbase. So we talked about a founder-led company. We talked about top talent. One thing we didn't talk about was acting like an owner, which is just one of our core values. If you go to Coinbase website, I used to kind of think when I was in school that like the mission and the values were kind of like a bunch of bullshit, to be honest. But it's really not when you're working at a founder-led company. These things are like the core of how people, how we attract the right types of people with the right mindset to get things done in the way that that company operates. And one of the values that we have is acting like an owner, and we have an ability at a company like Coinbase to take a problem and you heard about a DRI culture. It's a real thing. Like there's like not a day that goes by where I'm in a meeting and I'm not asking like, who is the DRI on this project? It could be an intern, it could be the CEO, it could be everyone in the middle. Somebody is in charge of something, and that doesn't mean they do all the work, but they're responsible for making sure it happens to the standards that we would expect at Coinbase. And that's for a lot of you who actually care about like accountability and actually doing real work. That's a really important part for me of working for a company, is actually taking ownership and doing something. I'd just say impact is king. Like in software, like we're not just there to have fun, and Coinbase is interesting because we don't really talk about anything else but work. Our culture is like, we are laser focused on work. And for a lot of companies, and in Canada, that can be a little weird because Canadians like to talk about the weather for like 15 minutes before we get into the actual conversation. At Coinbase, you can just get on a call with somebody and go right into the question. And it's not rude or disrespectful. It's like you can leave a meeting in 5 minutes. You can really focus on the work, ask those hard questions, and people are there because they want to focus on the work. And if you're talking about work, you're talking about people who are curious and interested. And just we have so much to do. I mean, we're like really at the beginning. And so I think there's a lot of ambition inside of the company. And so we look for people who are mission aligned, who can act like owners, who understand what it's like to take responsibility and accountability and break through walls. Brian always says, we need people who break through walls. Nothing's perfect at Coinbase. Like it's a startup. There's still tons of friction. But that's part of like why we're there. We're there to fix problems, and we hire people who love solving problems. I always say, like I have a philosophy about work, that you are all aspiring, doesn't matter what field you're in, what you study, I sort of think of everyone as aspiring professional decision makers. And you in your career are trying to figure out how to make decisions in your respective area. A good example is if you're a lawyer working at Coinbase, I would expect that in a year from now, you're making better legal decisions for Coinbase. And if you're not, then you're not developing. So all of you are trying to figure out within your own world, how do you make great decisions? And ultimately, leaders are people that have experience making bad decisions and good decisions and understand how to contextualize things and make decisions effectively. And that's just a fun place to work when you can contribute to something like that. Talked about Brian, just an incredible founder and somebody that we have just a huge respect for. He's an incredible leader in the company and a driving force in our mission to update the financial system. Coinbase, if you're not super familiar with us, we're a publicly traded company that's been founded on a principle of compliance and trust and building a trusted system. We really believe in doing things the right way. One of our earliest employees is now the second oldest employee after Brian, and he's in charge of like surveillance and integrity of the market. So Brian started really early thinking about how do we do this the right way, in a compliant way, so that we can help people do this safely. So we have like one good anecdote to think about it. We have more people that work in compliance than FTX had at their entire company. Our mission, as I said, is to increase economic freedom. It's a real thing. This is kind of how I think about the old system and the new system. I gave this presentation at Consensus or Collision last year. On the left, this is like the old system, right? We have 6 banks that have 90% of the people, 80% of the money. Centralized, it's extractive. So it extracts, our financial system figures out how do we extract more value from our customers. It's really expensive, it's concentrated. And then on the right, you'll see sort of this future system update that we're building, which is anyone with an internet connection, doesn't matter who you are, where you live, who your parents were. If you have a smartphone, you have access to the blockchain in the exact same way that I do. I have myself or anyone else has no benefit over you. It treats every single person the same. We went through equality and cheap and empowering, but this is really the direction of travel that we're looking to bring to the world. As a business, this is sort of how we think about, like, we have a consumer segment, so we have a retail app, a self-custodied wallet called Base that's rolling out right now. It was previously Wallet. We have an institutional section, so we power banks, financial institutions. We custody most of the Bitcoin in the world for ETFs and Ethereum. We build a prime services, so a lot of companies around the world use our prime solutions, that API, a prime API, to build staking, custody, and exchange services for their clients. So if you wanted to build a business that allowed your clients to buy Bitcoin, you could use Prime under the hood as a white label solution. And that gets down to the developer section where we built this CDP like an AWS so that we could power businesses all over the world that leverage our technology to build on chain. Base is our newest layer 2 protocol. If you're not familiar with that, I have a QR code that you guys can scan in a second, but here it is, Base. This is Jesse Pollock. He worked at Coinbase for a long time. He's basically the CEO of Base. He's an executive now on the team, and he has a mission to bring 1 million builders on chain. And so his focus is how do we help make it really easy and safe for builders around the world to build on chain. He's trying to get 1 billion people on Base and $1 trillion of assets. This is sort of his ambition for the year and what he wants to accomplish. This is a huge year for Base. It's had just a great success. You guys probably understand this concept of a layer 2 protocol, but Base is a layer 2 on top of Ethereum that just helps with efficiency and helps provide sort of faster execution on chain. This is kind of how we think about, like, actually we talked about this, like the internet, this is a new internet. We think about this new internet of money. Just kind of whipping through some of these slides. Here's a good slide. If you're interested in building, if you're a builder, software builder, this is Basecamp. You can sign up. This has access to all the docs and information that you would need to actually build on chain. So the team did a really good job at sort of helping build this Basecamp out for builders all over the world. Somebody asked about the Discord, so that's the Discord channel. If you guys are interested, if you want to connect with people on Base. Yeah, so I'd say this is sort of the shift that we're seeing in the world. There's a couple slides here that I'll go through, but we've gone from a very speculative retail asset class, where I'm sure a lot of you have seen the meme coins. We've done that because of a lack of clarity and regulatory clarity around the world that has prevented banks and institutions from coming on chain. We're seeing more institutions than we've ever seen come on chain over the last 3 months, and certainly in Canada, we're seeing a lot of institutions now taking note. We're moving from fear, where a lot of people talked about these risks and being scared of this technology, to governments around the world actually embracing it and understanding why billions of people are going to come on chain. We're moving from this concept, this deep centralization of oligopoly, into competition, certainly something we need more of in Canada. And we're moving from like basic regulation to actually having political leaders around the world that believe that this is a strategic priority for their country. So we see leaders, not just in the US administration, but all over the world, that understand this is a potential for their economy to reverse the trend and actually thrive in a new emerging type of technology. I'm sure a lot of you have tried to use blockchain know that the user experience is still really challenging. It's not something that I would like trust my mother to get everything right the first time, and that's really changing right now. Most people don't really understand what a TCP/IP protocol is. They don't understand how the internet works, but we have 100 apps on our phone. We all know how to use them. That's sort of the direction of travel for stable coins and for crypto and blockchain. This user experience is actually coming together. We put out a smart contract. There's a number of companies that are solving these like core friction points of like store your keys or you're going to lose all your money type of concepts. We're moving from like 6 banks in Canada to everyone is their own bank who has a smartphone. And this is sort of the sort of priority list for myself here in Canada is that we need to start helping Canadians move money into crypto and diversifying their wealth. We need a Canadian-denominated stablecoin in market. It's probably the area I've focused most on over the last 2 years with government. There is a change happening in the government now, an appreciation that we need federal prudential regulation of stablecoins. I won't get into the boring details of regulation, but we have a very unique offside approach to regulating stablecoins and crypto in Canada that our industry has been working on, and really keen to help our government get ourselves back on track so that we can fall in line with the rest of the world and use these assets as they were intended. Physical cards, so I really want to bring a card to Canada. We just launched our credit card in the US. It's 4% back on all transactions in Bitcoin. It's been incredibly successful, and I'm working really, really hard to bring a credit card here to Canada. Remittances, like I said, 1 in 5 Canadians, it just makes no sense. The cross-border fees that people pay today in Canada just makes no sense. Foreign exchange, obviously, Liam's here, we'll chat about stablecoins in a minute, but stablecoins are going to form a really powerful part of how businesses and institutions think about foreign exchange and cross-border. I had a meeting this morning and somebody told me that, and I don't know if this is true or not, so don't quote me on it, but he told me that last month there was $1.4 trillion traded in stablecoin foreign exchange volume, which is a huge number. And so this is just the beginning of sort of, you think of the foreign exchange market, which is a really high margin business. If you're a bank or you're offering foreign exchange services, those margins are really thick and healthy. They're about to get crushed with stablecoin foreign exchange. And obviously high net worth. I think a lot of people in here, how many people, just out of curiosity, how many people in here's parents own crypto? Okay, more than I thought. That's great. That's one of my ambitions this year, is to bring parents on chain, right? Because a lot of youth understand this concept. They understand it because of inflation. They understand it because it's harder to make money and generate wealth. But it's really time for older generations and populations who do have wealth to understand how to diversify that wealth into a crypto economy. And then supporting banks. So like I said, I spend a lot of time with financial institutions in Canada, helping them think about crypto. We will see financial institutions in Canada next year come online. And of course, in Canada, we will be a fast follow kind of culture here. We see banks in the US really moving quickly, like the Bank of America, JP Morgan. The US will sort of front run the rest of the world and start experimenting around how institutions can use crypto. Real quick, these are my predictions. I predicted last year my mom would open a Coinbase account. She hasn't yet, but I haven't talked to her about it, but I just want to see how this plays out. But she's like, 76 years old, retired, thinking about her retirement, but she still hasn't really come to the conclusion that she should be diversifying into crypto. But I imagine her population, this is sort of the year and next year where a lot of the older population will come online. This mindset shift is happening. Governments around the world are leading that charge through education and helping citizens realize that this isn't just like a scary thing they should run away from. You can go through this list. We don't have to go through all of them. Maybe I'll pick out one more. Yeah, I think like the second last bullet, this concept that crypto will become recognized as a safe way to exchange money. I think most people I talk to in the government, surprisingly, this narrative has changed a lot. But most of my conversations now in government, they know that blockchain's better. That's I would say mostly undisputed concept now, that there's a genuine appreciation for why the rest of the world is thinking of adopting this technology. This is our talent hub. I think this was on earlier, but if you guys are interested in working at Coinbase, If you're interested in getting involved with our talent team, this is basically a Google form. You can fill out your information. You can get on a distribution list with all of our jobs and our internships and all the things that we're doing to hire. You can get directly from this. I don't see any phones. I'll chat with Stan with Crypto. How are we doing for time, by the way? How are we doing? Good? How are we doing for time? 3 minutes, perfect. So Stan with Crypto. So why does Coinbase spend so much time helping governments understand this opportunity? Because ultimately governments are like trust signals to citizens in the world. And if governments want to, if citizens want to embrace this technology, we need the government to understand why it's important. And as I mentioned, it's not in the top 50 list. Stand with Crypto is it's a grassroots organization that we have all over the world and here in Canada to help people in their local ridings, help their members of parliament understand why crypto is so important. And I would just say, if I could ask a favor of all of you, I would say, please write your MP. I never imagined that this was a real thing, and we've all heard it before, write your MP, but it actually makes a huge difference. For an MP to get an email from a student at Waterloo talking about the future, building on chain for our economy. It's really important for our elected officials to understand you care about crypto, because they don't hear about it from a lot of their constituents who are complaining about A, B, and C. We need more elected officials hearing directly from people like yourselves, who are like, you guys are the future, you're building the future. And we're trying to build a grassroots organization here in Canada. We have partners, dozens of partners, so all the crypto exchanges, we have banks, a whole bunch of players in Web3 that have joined Stand with Crypto to help us advocate for the opportunity. And then I'm sure you've seen this, but if you this is $10 in Bitcoin. If you guys don't have any today on Coinbase, it's a place to start. I would say most people think about the speculative nature of crypto right now, but I would just really encourage you guys to think about dollar cost averaging, just slowly diversifying your wealth into the digital economy as you guys think about building your own portfolios. That's it. Those are my slides. Do we want to? We're good? That's all. Thank you.
All right, so we have just 5 minutes here. We're gonna give Lucas a little break. He's been up here for a long time. He will be back though, because we will be talking with our two great alumni who have made this day possible. But before we do, we would like to talk about Waterloo blockchain for a quick 3 minutes. Before we do that though, I would also like to point out that if what you've heard today sounds good to you and you like what you're hearing, again, right here, this blue link is the link with Coinbase internships. So again, that's where you can put your name in, put your resume, get connected with the team, and just follow our Instagram, follow our Discord, because we are very tight with the Coinbase team. When there's opportunities that arise, we'll be sure to let you guys know, like throughout our Discord, Instagram, etc. So just make sure you're following us and you're in our servers. And that way you'll be double secured if you ever want to work at Coinbase. But back to our presentation here. Again, my name is Conrad Weber. I'm co-president of Waterloo Blockchain, and I'm joined here with Hitarth and Pravish, and I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Hitarth, co-president Waterloo Blockchain.
Hi guys, I'm Pravish, I'm vice president. And can we have like a round of applause for Lucas again, because he helped sponsor the whole event and he gave like a great presentation. Also for Coinbase, they hire a lot of Waterloo folks, and they specifically look for, we heard allegedly, like if you're part of the club or like part of the community in some way or shape of the firm. So, and it's a great way to start being part of the community by joining the club. We are looking for more talents and more amazing people. So if you're interested, reach out to us, DM us on in LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter. We're very active. We'll reach back to you. If you have any role that could be like not specific, but we can make it happen for you. So yeah.
With that being said, if you go to our Discord, Instagram, we are doing hiring. And we also have a very cool trip coming up to Buenos Aires. So I'll actually let Hitarth speak about that. But before I do, We've had our club go to, I think, 5+ different states, and we've been to Turkey, Singapore, and Thailand, all with our hackers. So, we do take a lot of your time weekly if you join our club, but you will also get rewarded. So I'll pass it on to Hitarth to talk about what we try to offer to students.
Yep. So like Conrad mentioned, we try to host a lot of cool hacker houses around the year. We have been to Prague recently, UC Berkeley, Harvard, and we go to hackathons and conferences by ETH Global and other Ethereum Solana conferences so that we can get hackers from Waterloo. To hack on cool projects and also attend these conferences. So that said, the next hacker house coming up is at Def Connect Buenos Aires, Argentina. And we also have ETH Global Buenos Aires there. And we are looking for hackers to go with us. So if you are interested, go to our Instagram. We have posted a story with the interest form. And if you're interested to join us, please fill out that interest form and we will get back to you. You could also check out our Discord announcements where we have that form posted up. And it would be a very cool experience. We cover your flights, mostly accommodation and other costs as well. So it's just about hacking on cool projects.
You also do get to keep all of your prize money. Last year at ETH Global Denver, we won 100K out of the 1 million. So we represented 1% of the hackers. We took home 10% of the prizes. So if you want to join the winning team, you know where to find us. We tend to do pretty well, and that's sort of the point we touched earlier. Like Waterloo is huge. People in crypto really, really look for Waterloo, and that's why we have great founders here like Martin and Liam. They try to go out of their way to find us. So please, come to us and let us know what we can do better, and please join our team. We've had a few people that have been really instrumental in bringing us here today. One of them is Fahim. He was unable to make it. We also have Xavier right here. He joined when he was in high school. Pretty crazy. And we also have Amy right here. I wanted to bring her up to say a few words because she's been here for over 4 years with the org. I'm pretty sure 3 years. 3 years. So she can say a few words as well.
Thank you, Conrad. Hey everyone, my name is Amy. I see some familiar faces, and I just want to say it's been a very long journey for crypto in Canada and also at Waterloo Blockchain. A little bit about me. In June 2022, I joined Discord hub of Waterloo, and I found UW Blockchain Club. So there was no Waterloo Blockchain, there was a blockchain club, and there was a post by Fahim, and maybe the 20 people there at the time. They were like, hey, there's a Futurist conference in Toronto. You can get a free ticket, you just show up. So I was like, bet. I show up, and it was awesome. It was my first time at any crypto conference or any tech conference in general, but I've been working on transaction servers for all my co-ops. I've looked at a lot of transactions. That's what I still do on Solana. And yeah, when I joined, we had problems because a lot of people wanted to work with us. They wanted to work with the students here, but we had issues with BUSA and our funding. Because the funding was centralized, we had club members who would pay to get posters printed, pay to get pizza, but then we were unable to get the reimbursement out of WUSA. And that was a huge problem because we are a blockchain club. We're supposed to advance finances, not get dragged down by it. So after 4 months at the club, I said, hey guys, we've been agonizing over this. We've been back and forth, ping-ponging with WUSA to no end. What are we gonna do? I said, let's incorporate a nonprofit. And that is what happened. We incorporated as a nonprofit in Canada, and our mission is to bring blockchain education and advanced technical education of blockchain technologies on campus. And that's what we did in 2023. And following that, we've hosted a hackathon with 250 people, mobilized a lot of funding. Conrad would know better because he joined as our treasurer. And
about 200K, and I think around 500K total has gone back to students throughout hacker houses and all the money that we raise.
Yep, and we have several different wallets on different chains that are public multi-sigs. And this is all possible because we were able to work with the financial institutions. We were able to open up a, business registry that all went relatively smoothly, and we were able to follow the rules for filing taxes, for taking attendance of members, and we are okay so far. And none of this would be possible. The bubble tea, the pizza, the waters would not be possible if we did not have any of these components, right? The first being the students, the members here who are actively building, who are willing to take that leap of faith and go to a hackathon even though they have never hacked before. People who may have heard bad things about crypto or maybe saw someone trade and then they come over here and they learn that the technical infrastructure isn't the be all end all. It's the people, the friends you meet along the way, like the people you build with at the hacker houses. And I just want to close off by saying, as someone who's been here for 3 years, the most value add to the community and eventually to my own digital identity and on-campus identity is helping other people succeed. It's helping, I look around the room and I see 3 people that I've brought to Singapore. And that was not because of me being able to bring them to Singapore. It was because I had an open opportunity from Alex Scott, an alumni, who had spots for Super Team UAE that he graciously gave to us. And I was able to bring 10 people to Singapore. And that is very awesome because they're here today still. And I suppose if you're an industry veteran, the churn rate is very real. So at Waterloo Blockchain, we don't want to churn out the next generation of students. We don't want you to get burnt out by a corporate job. That's why we promote DRI. That's why the sense of ownership is very important to you at your job. And I hope that at the club, it nurtures that for you, that you're able to walk away from here today feeling very inspired and go Google things. Go Google things until 2 a.m. That would be great. And then connect with everyone here on LinkedIn. So yeah, back to you, Conrad.
Thank you. I mean, yeah, for those of you, no, I guess nobody would know. Amy hired me. So it's a pretty cool full circle moment. And I'm looking in the crowd. I see Cole, who's onto some pretty cool things. He just got accepted into the YC batch of 2025 and he joined crypto 8 months ago. Yeah. So he came on, won 5 out of 5 hackathons, and then said, yeah, why not? I'll go to Coinbase, do an SWE internship. And now he's on to much bigger and greater things. And I think that's just the sort of mindset that we try to have here. 2 of our members just became partners at A16Z, and they're building out the Jolt VM. They're 21 years old. They're dropping out of school to be a partner at A16Z. So we do some pretty cool shit. So please, 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 come and join us, and I'll leave it to you guys to say a few more words before we invite Jacob down here.
Yeah, if all of that sounds cool, just message us if you want to be a part of the team, or just take the first step by coming with us to the Argentina Hacker House and just fill up the interest form. It's just 4 fields. It's that simple.
Can we have a round of applause again, please, for our next hack?
All right. I guess I'm in here. I am working for KPMG now because of the club. So I've been here for 3 years, and now I'm in their blockchain division, which is pretty cool. So if you want to come find me afterwards, talk to me about that. I got a whole story to tell you, and I can tell you about what we do. And there's a lot of opportunities, whether it's in marketing, business, finance, or your technical, non-technical. Crypto's really grown a lot. So we try to give students opportunities. And now I'd like to have Jacob down here, so let's give him a nice applause. So we can take a seat, and then afterwards we'll have our last talk, and then we'll do a little Q&A, and we'll have some networking after. So please stick around. So I'll start off with pretty much the same question I did last time with Lucas. What got you into crypto? And assuming that nobody here knows you, what have you done in the space? And maybe you could talk about some similarities that you and I have and what's brought you here today.
Cool. Thank you. Hello, everybody. How we doing? Thank you for having me at your lovely school. I, fortunately, but maybe unfortunately to you, am a Queens alumni, not a Waterloo, but happy to be here. What got me into crypto was back, I guess, 6 years ago now. I was a Queens student sitting in res in first year, and me and my buddy were there. It was dead COVID. We were bored as hell and even more broke. And he was talking about how on his Twitter, he was seeing how Bitcoin was about to go up. And I was like, I've heard of that funny internet money before. So we decided to buy a little bit of Bitcoin and get into it from that. And we started to fall down the rabbit hole. We got orange pilled and we wanted to learn more. So the way that Queens works in Queens Commerce is that it's very clubs oriented and extracurriculars oriented. And like if you wanted to go into investment banking, you join the investment banking club or so forth, right? You might be able to see where this is going. We wanted to learn more about crypto, and it didn't exist for students at Queens. So we thought it'd be a great opportunity to start something up. And we started a club, it's called the Blockchain Lab. And we ended up actually scaling it across the country, and we raised like a friends and family fund, and we managed it all on chain and so forth. And we really got more and more into crypto and into the space because of this, and being with other students that were interested in it, and meeting up regularly and talking about it and learning and using each other as resources. And that is what led me to get my job. And I now work at Penrose Partners. It's a digital asset consultancy. We advise public and private institutions. We work with Coinbase. We help out with their Stand with Crypto initiatives, as well as we work with their Bermuda team as well. So yes, big advocate for extracurriculars. It's a great way to stand out from the pack, especially at, I'm sure you guys have experienced this, but especially at times like this, like even like 2 weeks ago at Penrose, we're a small firm and we put a junior consultant position out and we got 1,400 applicants. So it's a tough time to stand through the pack, but things like Waterloo blockchain is a great way to do so.
I think, yeah, I totally agree with what you say. I might be a little bit biased, and I think for the students, most of them here at Waterloo, we already have an established club. They can come join it, so they might not have the title and like the agency that you would get from starting your own potential club. So I know also, maybe you could talk about it a little bit later, but Penrose, might be looking for some hiring opportunities. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. So how can students stand out, and what do they need to do? And also, I think one thing I would like to hear, if they don't join, let's say, our club, what can they do personally to stand out? Because not everybody obviously needs to join Waterloo Blockchain. What else can they do?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, and yes, we always do hire, and I do recommend everybody applies to the Coinbase and does it like that. Penrose is just a different opportunity, and I can touch more on it after. It's like a startup, small space versus a large, great organization. But the way that we have found people that perform the best at Penrose, we always have a lot of students on hand at all times. We always have like multiple interns. I talk to interns every single day throughout like fall, winter, summer, etc. And the ones that we have found to be the most successful and the best that we come back and we give them full-time offers and etc. Are our self-starters, so that you don't have to start the next Waterloo Blockchain Club. But starting something and showing initiative in that way and owning something is very, very important. And that is the number one thing that we look for now with new hires when it comes to students. Because when somebody takes the initiative to get out there and put their neck on the line and take the initiative and the extra work, do the late evenings for something they care about and what they dream about, then that really is what makes a great candidate. And it's also something that's fantastic to talk about in interviews, right? Back when I was interviewing when I was a student, it was the one thing that I led back to every time because it can relate to anything. You can relate to tough times with fellow classmates. It can talk about times you're talking to like large corporations and trying to raise funds and things of this nature. It's a great way to have a lot of applicable resources and applicable experiences that you can bring to the workforce, and the hires definitely see that.
So I'll ask one, I guess a few more questions. The next thing is similar to what I asked Lucas. What was your aha moment, like when you were pretty much our age, and what was like that foresight? Because I don't think it was as clear 5 years ago. Now all of crypto is worth $4 trillion. We have, like Lucas said, within a year, I think almost every country will have some sort of regulation around crypto. It's very clear, at least to me, that blockchain is 100% here to stay, and crypto is like 99% sure it's going to stick around. So what was that moment for you? And maybe can you shed some light on that for students to also, like Amy said, go home and Google some things, do some research. So what did you do?
Yeah, so I'll say two things. The first of which, when I was a student, it was when I went to school, like there's career counselors and there's fellow colleagues and you got parents and you got older people that work in the industry and so forth that give you all their piece of advice. And a lot of those pieces of advice were typically related to working in a traditional sense or for like a traditional firm and not, it's like, oh, like you should go, I don't know, like go work at a bank, right? And it's like, okay, that's cool. But I came across crypto and realized this is the next wave. It is a wave that's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and there's governments adopting it, there's institutions adopting it, there's citizens adopting it. My grandmother uses it now, and it's like, okay, like this is, everybody says it's like, it's here to stay. And I kind of like related to it back in like, when I was at school, was kind of like, I thought of it as like the fax machine to an email comparison. It's like, oh, the people around me keep telling me to go work in the fax, like with companies that like build fax machines back in the day when faxes were a thing, not anymore. But like go work for the company that makes the fax machine. Everybody uses the fax machine, but you know that email just got developed and everybody's going to start using email. So it's like, why would you want to go work for the fax company and not email? This like next big tech that you know everybody's going to get adopted. A little analogy there, but the second one that made me really stick to it and where I decided that I wanted to spend all my time towards is the aspect of financial inclusion. And Lucas talked a bit on this before, but the fantastic thing about crypto is that everybody has the same access to this technology and the same kind of financial tools to this technology. And when I kind of started to read about like other examples around the world, it really like stuck with me because we are lucky in Canada that we do have a strong banking system, and we can't really comprehend the full, or we can't like experience the full extent of what crypto is, and compared to other countries that have a much worse financial system where they have governments or banks that lock their funds, take their funds, don't allow them to pay for things, don't allow them to do other aspects. And when you realize that and that how crypto and Bitcoin has been a solution to these people, it's pretty empowering. And it's a lot of the work that we do now to this day as well. We do a lot of work in Bermuda, and we're trying to help them out and revolutionize their entire financial system and put it all on chain and be like the first country to do so. And then ideally we bring that to other areas like Canada and use it as like an education and a case study of that sense. But that was what kind of sold me.
I think it's a very real thing, and it's becoming more and more real. I think even with, I think the US government put like GDP data on the blockchain or something last week. Like, okay, it doesn't really mean anything, but what that does signal to me is it's all going on chain. We actually had the pleasure, some of our students, of seeing the Cornell conference, and they had somebody very, very high up from the DTCC, which is the Digital Clearing Commission. Either way, every stock trading clearing commission has got to go through there. They do over, I think, $4 trillion a year easily. Went on stage and she's like, yeah, like we have a whole crypto division. Every stock we think is going to go on chain. Everything is going to get cleared on chain because there's proof. Like that's the ledger. And I think my analogy that I would give is you go from having a debit and a credit written on paper, and then you just give somebody Excel. It's night and day, because like you're making money programmable. I can go and I can be in any country. I can be in Africa, Argentina, El Salvador, all countries that have real issues with their government and their currency, and that's where the buy-in, I think, is the most. And it's a very different attitude from like the speculative sort of mindset I think that we've adopted in North America regarding investing in cryptocurrencies. But with that being said, somebody also needs to make those decisions and fund those businesses and be there to support the growth of crypto. So probably like the last question I'll leave you with here is, at Penrose Partners, how do you guys go through your processes? What do you invest in? And what would you say is the company and also your niche and what you invest in and what gets you guys excited?
Yeah, definitely. So I can give a little bit of a very brief explanation of what Penrose Partners does. And it's kind of like we provide the business aspects to a lot of blockchain companies. So like there's great blockchain developers and technical people, like I'm sure many of you in the audience. But But there's a lot of other components that need to go related to that, and a lot of that can be business components. And that's kind of how Penrose got its start. We worked with a lot of like technical startups, and we said we want to invest in these people, and we want to help these people scale to different areas, whether that's helping them raise funds or sell their products or so forth. It's kind of expanded now into working with larger institutions and advising them on kind of like two different sides. It's either like one, it could be like a traditional institution, like a big financial institution, or like a government, like we work with the government of Bermuda, or we've worked with the government of Canada as well, and educating them on how, or advising them on how they can get into the crypto space. And then it's also on the other flip side of the coin where it's crypto companies that are looking to expand into the traditional side of the space. And we're at a really good time right now where we're seeing a lot of that cross happen, and we're kind of playing in the middle of that, of just kind of being like the translator from side to side. So we invest our time and our efforts, and we always invest in our clients as well, on kind of like building that up and being the person in the middle that makes these partnerships stick and helps translate the traditional conversations to the technical conversations, because that's a very important part, especially for governments to understand it and regulators to understand it, as well as the bankers to understand it, right? So that's what we do. Happy to talk about it after.
All right, awesome. Let's give a quick round of applause. Awesome. I know everybody is tired. We all want to go home, but we have probably the talk that I'm the most excited for. So without any more wait, I would like to have Liam and Martin come on down, and let's give them a nice welcome. So Lucas and I will moderate this panel a little bit here. So let's do. I don't know what we should do. You don't want to go in the middle? Okay, we don't have any insurance. We got to be careful. All right, so I guess I'll open things here. Both being Waterloo alumni, I think that something's in the water here. We have something that tends to build builders. And I want to know, in your opinion, what was it, and what was your experience, being at Waterloo, and how has that made you into the person you are today?
So I think that what it is that Waterloo has that builds builders and founders is the general attitude, the sentiment, the crowd. In life, like, you are going to achieve exactly what the people that you are surrounded by are achieving, because this is going to be your defining circle, right? You will have typical conversations about the topics that interest them. You will try to fit in. In Waterloo, we have great engineering background. We have super strong co-op program, right? Everybody gets some experiences. We have the history of the town surrounded by technology and businesses. So this is all part of it. The nature is here, and you just need to go talk to the people and find it.
So why does Waterloo have such good engineers? Is that the question?
Engineers and people that end up in crypto, which mostly are.
Okay. I think in Waterloo it's like very entrepreneurial, and it's not very tracked. Like, if you go to like Yale or Harvard or some of these places in the States, it's kind of very tracked. Like, you should go through a certain kind of path to get to like whatever prestigious job. I think in Waterloo it's a lot more kind of open market and entrepreneurial, where it's like you want to win based on your merit, which is why a lot of folks are even here. Is like it's merit driven as opposed to more like prestige and ideologically like trying to like align with some agenda driven. And crypto is very good at attracting people that can think for themselves and like want to kind of go their own way. And so I think it's something about like that free spirit is what maybe makes people more attracted to crypto. In terms of why people in Waterloo are good, I think it's just that we have a lot of spare time. Like, there's not a lot of parties, there's not a lot of like crazy stuff going on. We're kind of in the middle of nowhere, and so you're just like very focused and heads down all the time. And you know that there's so much opportunity available to you, right? There's so many cool jobs you can do, and in 4 months you're going to do that cool job. So everyone's always searching for like the next cool thing to do and where to take their life. And so I think everyone's very hungry, which, as you know, probably you guys are very hungry. So I think that's my thought.
I don't know. I don't have nothing to add here. I'm going to try to talk as little as possible.
That's all right. If you want, I can just, either way, I can moderate it. I think, I guess a lot of students here might not know exactly. I mean, obviously, we've gotten to know Lucas very well by the end of today. But for the two of you, I guess I'll start with Liam because of ETH Global, and then I'd also want to hear about Waterloo, and then obviously Zirkit and QuantStamp. What is it that you do, and how did it come to be, and what role do you think you play in crypto with what you've built, and sort of like the impact that it's had?
So I have a kind of a crazy story with crypto. So about 10 years ago, actually more than 10, in 2013, I was like literally in this class, actually maybe not this exact classroom, but I was in another classroom like down the hall with Vitalik Buterin, who was like the founder of Ethereum. And he was literally just like another person, like they would attend like a seminar just like this one, just like clacking away on his laptop. And he was at the time doing Bitcoin Magazine. And I just like was like, whoa, this kid is super smart. What's he up to? What's he thinking about? I got to know him a little bit and just, learned a little bit about Bitcoin. And then he actually ended up dropping out. He went to Europe, ironically, because he couldn't get a visa to the States. He had like some trouble with the visa process. And when he was going to work at Ripple, I think. I think he even had an offer at Coinbase. Is that right? It was Ripple, yeah. So anyway, he went to Europe and he created Ethereum. And actually, I'm pretty sure I haven't been able to verify this, but like what we learned in CS 146. It was like simp to J2K. It was like doing like a sort of like a machine language that we were writing, then an interpreter for it. And like I'm pretty sure he went to Europe like 4 months after that and was like, oh, I can do the EVM. And I think that's literally how he created Ethereum. Was he learned about writing interpreters and compilers, and he kind of took that and applied to his Bitcoin knowledge. Anyway, so like I knew him from that time. In 2017, I wanted to do something. I wanted to start a new company. And I basically asked him like, hey, Ethereum looks really cool, it's really growing. What are the 3 biggest things to work on? And he mentioned like sharding, proof of stake, and state channels. And at the time, like there was this guy, Vlad Zamfir, working on proof of stake, and then he was working on sharding, but no one was doing state channels, which is like payment channels, like really fast payments. And so I just said, okay, I'm just gonna work on that. And basically my career then for the next like 8 years was just like obsessively focused on trying to like make payments work on Ethereum and making it scale to facilitate more world like scale usage of these systems. And that's still what I'm doing today, basically. And I've built a bunch of projects in this space. Optimism is the latest one. It's the most recent one. It's layer 2 on Ethereum, and now I'm doing Tempo, which is basically it's basically taking all of Ethereum and getting Stripe to use Ethereum. Yeah.
So I come from the software engineering and cybersecurity background. My PhD here at Waterloo was in computational geometry. And I got first time, in touch with crypto much earlier than that. It was like 2012, 2013, and it was actually through spam, because I kept receiving 2 types of spam. One was, buy Bitcoin, and the other one was certain parts of your body needs enlargement, and we can hook you up. And I did none of that. I didn't buy Bitcoin. Nothing happened. I took all my money, went for a vacation with my nowadays wife. It was, amazing thing. And then I had long break from crypto up until 2016, 2017, when Ethereum started emerging. And I actually found fascinating that out of this decentralized storage, we as society sort of decided to use it to store value. We could have just decided, hey, this is the greatest, nobody is gonna shut down this torrent file store, I will have all the movies in the world. But no, as society, we actually decided to primarily use it for store of value. And blockchain on its own back then for me was, automation tool, right? Suddenly you can interact with those wallets. Suddenly you can have programmable money. And that's actually something that really, really fascinated me. But, what was also clear already back then, because we already have seen the DAO hack in 2016, that, this store of money, it actually will be vulnerable to various actors in the world who will try to get their hands on the money. One of the greatest benefits of the bank is that if I walk you to the bank and put a gun to your head and said, hey, give me all the money that you have in your bank account, this is probably not going to happen, right? Somebody in the bank is going to say no, somebody's going to protect you, it's going to be frozen. No, on blockchain suddenly these kind of safety barriers do not exist, right? And we actually purposefully create systems where we say, hey, people, put money in there. And so this is sort of where we stood with QuantStamp at the very beginning. We started as a smart contract auditing company, so our primary purpose was to look for bugs in these systems that eventually will be exploited and will lead to loss of money. That's around 2017, 2018. And together with the company, I would like to say that we pretty much crafted the auditing industry. I was the first auditor that we had on the team. Eventually, so at the beginning, I was splitting my allocation between auditing smart contracts and coding. Eventually, I just became an auditor because there was such a demand for it, and the number of incidents that we have seen in this space, was not decreasing, and the demand was just increasing. And so out of that, me and some other people were always asking, hey, could we actually have these blockchains be a little bit more proactive? Like they do amazing job when they secure their own consensus, right? And then the network operations, but like they never make any opinions about the transactions. In the end, like this is partially the ethos that we have here, right? The trustlessness and censorship resistance and all of that. So we decided, no, hey, let's take all this amazing security tooling that we have in this company that is catered towards analyzing protocols and analyzing transactions, and let's build a blockchain. We decided to do a layer 2 on Ethereum that actually actively looks at the transactions and filters out hacks and prevents them from happening so that people do not lose money. And this is what we do.
I want to come back and touch on a second in sort of, I think, what makes Circuit very unique in terms of the sequencing and, like you said, the filtering out of transactions. Before we do that, I do have a question for Liam, because I think having Coinbase on here and Lucas here, there's a pretty cool connection between the two of you with Base Chain, obviously. So for those who don't know in the audience, do you want to talk a little bit about what Optimism has enabled for several chains?
Sure. So I guess the way to think about it is, when we were kind of in the pursuit of the mission of how to scale Ethereum, it was not exactly clear the right path, because you have this one kind of blockchain, and we wanted to make it so that you could get like huge, like tens of thousands times more transactions going through it, and you wanted each transaction to be super cheap. But that was quite difficult to do with traditional methods. We tried to do payment channels for a while so that you could facilitate payments within like fixed numbers of counterparties. But what we ultimately realized with Ethereum was we kind of needed to like basically do sharding, which is split it into several different separate layers of blockchains. So now you have like layer 2, that's where the term comes from, like a second layer of these chains, but make it still possible to prove that the execution of those chains were correct on Ethereum L1. So L1 becomes like the judicial layer. So we spent a lot of time working on that and figuring out technically how do you do that. But the thing to think about is we were like nerds writing software, writing protocols. We didn't have any real go-to-market ability of like who should we get to use this thing. We just wanted to make it work, and we hoped that people would figure out how to make it useful. The partnership with Coinbase was actually with Jesse Pollock, who he was trying to figure out a way of getting Coinbase to be more on chain, getting Coinbase to do more than just do the trading business and the custody business and so on, and actually start interacting on chain, doing transactions with like interacting with like the ENS system or holding NFTs or whatever it might be. And so there was kind of an interesting moment where like him and I together were like, hey, we have figured out this system of how to scale Ethereum. You've been trying to figure out how to get Coinbase more on chain. What if we did kind of a technology partnership where you can take Coinbase, the business, and begin to like integrate more and more of the business onto a blockchain so that you get all the benefits, like it's open, it's programmable, it's global, and so on. And that became the first major kind of customer, essentially, of Optimism, where we launched Base alongside Jesse. And that's been, like, I think, a really successful partnership. I think it's probably still the fastest growing blockchain in the world, and it's been a really great case study for like taking all this technology for scaling Ethereum and applying it to a business that has serious distribution. I think that's basically now where we're at as an industry. Also, just by the way, is like we've kind of solved a lot of the technical challenges, at least for like building these kind of globally distributed systems. And a lot of the challenge now is how do we get it to be adopted by the rest of the world, which because of regulation and so on, now it's like actually happening right now, which is very exciting.
I think one really cool story I heard, actually, it was Jesse speaking on a podcast, was about how within Coinbase for the US, like they have these stand-up meetings, and anybody can propose sort of anything that they'd like to have built. And I think that he first came and he said, we need to take Coinbase fully on chain, like remove the entire exchange, put it all on chain. And I think Brian was like, no, just no, what are you thinking? And then I think that's sort of, obviously sheds light on, he got the green light for a chain, and I guess that pieces together the rest of the puzzle. For me, I guess actually one question I've made for Lucas is, what do you think Base's chain plays as a role for Coinbase? Because I think that hasn't, it's been touched on a little bit, but I think it's really cool that we see such a reputable exchange also have a chain, and now it's being integrated. I think within, like we mentioned earlier, within 6 to 12 months, everybody that downloads the app will be able to swap directly on Base chain. So what does that mean, and what is that meshing between centralized and decentralized, where people get the best of both worlds?
Yeah, I would say, Brian a long time ago put together a grandmaster plan, and this is just part of the grandmaster plan. The whole point of crypto is decentralization, and as a business and as a project, Coinbase is committed to expanding our mission to bring more people on chain, and ultimately, if we're going to help bring 1 billion people on chain, that's going to be decentralized, and it's going to be all the things that you would want. Like the promise of crypto, when at the end of the day, if you write a list of what is crypto promising, it's promising that people can build safely, right? There's a safe place to build where you can build on chain, people can use it, it can scale. There's economies of scale, so the pricing mechanisms, no business is gonna create something where their customers don't know how much things cost, so there's some stability in economics within that model. And then it's easy to use, right? All those things, that's how I kind of think about the promise of crypto, and we've been ticking these things off the list. I think the usability is the one thing that we're still working on. But ultimately, if this is gonna work and we're gonna bring 1 billion people on chain, then Coinbase, it's great to be in a company that was, we are an intermediary, we're a centralized intermediary that we can, work with technology partners to actually make the mission true. Can I ask a question? Can you tell us a little bit more about Tempo and what you're doing around stable coins? And if you guys don't know this, Liam's just joined a new company that's in Stripe that they're working on something pretty cool. Would love to hear more about it.
Sure. Who knows what Tempo is, just so I know who I'm talking to? Okay, so some percentage of you guys. Okay, so Tempo was only announced publicly after having been leaked 3 weeks ago. What was it, last Thursday or last Friday? So basically what's going on is Stripe, which probably you guys know Stripe. It's the largest payment processor in the world on the internet. They are building in partnership with Paradigm, which is one of the largest crypto VCs, a new company called Tempo. And basically the idea is we're going to take a lot of the best scaling lessons learned from the past decade of scaling blockchains to build a purpose-built blockchain for payments. In partnership with Stripe. And so the idea basically is taking Stripe, which has, like I mentioned, the enormous volume. Every time you do a payment on the internet, every time you use Shopify, you're probably going through Stripe, and trying to move more of those flows of internet commerce, plus they actually do a bunch of other stuff but behind the scenes, onto Tempo. So it's like I said earlier, the partnership with Coinbase is really awesome because it's getting distribution for all this technology. Coinbase has 100 million plus users. Stripe is kind of the same idea, except instead of it being kind of Coinbase, which has a certain type of user, a certain type of trading activity, this is more for internet payments. So, thousands of TPS, all kinds of weird requirements in different countries and things like that. And it's a very fun project because there's no dogma and there's no barriers. We're building from scratch the most performant blockchain possible for payments. And the cool thing is the team that's building it are literally the people that have been building the core infrastructure for Ethereum. So the Reth, the execution layer, Foundry, which is the most used developer tool, VM, the most used kind of front end, there's a bunch of other stuff. And so we get to kind of take all these lessons learned and apply it to literally the biggest payments company in the world. So I'm very excited. I'm obsessively working on this 24/7 right now. Yeah.
I think one thing that's sort of underscoring everything that's been happening in crypto recently was that ETH holders are finally not depressed anymore, price-wise. They've gotten a little bit of liberation, and I think that for a while there I think we had intense debates, at least within the college and university crypto scene, about ETH versus Solana. And for a while, it was just constantly getting dunked on regarding, well, you know, your price is down, et cetera, et cetera. This is where the users are. And I think now Ethereum has made a little bit of a comeback, at least price-wise, if that's what you care about. But regardless, it's now more back in the spotlight, and I think more people are talking about it. Institutions are talking about it. And with both of you being so ETH aligned, what do you think was it that changed, and what possibly do we think we need to do better? Because I love, you know, both chains. I'm very chain agnostic. I don't really care. I just want the best for end of users at the end of the day. But what do you think sort of maybe possibly led to a little bit of that demise? Was there ever a demise, and are we back?
This is a interesting question. I don't typically comment on price movements, but so I think that one thing that the industry sort of needs to stop doing is, you know, getting depressed when the prices are down on one network or another network. You know, I think that the industry should be actually super, super excited that it has a bright future as an industry. It's a whole segment, you know. And whether Solana is currently, I don't know, beating Ethereum or Ethereum is beating Solana, it doesn't matter so much. I think that, you know, with the price action, maybe we have restored a little bit of the equilibrium. I think that the fundamental indicators always existed that, you know, something like that is going to happen. The institutional interest, the interest in Ethereum that the L2s bring, actually, you know, Coinbase is Ethereum aligned, right? That serves the distribution. I think that it was just a matter of time. But overall, like when it comes to the technology, I actually don't think that it's that important. You know, we can build cool stuff even when Ether is at zero. It never will be, but we could.
I actually, if you go to my Twitter, it's like Liam I Horn. There's a thing you can have it's spelled up there. There's a post that I tweeted today, written by my friend DC, that talks about how Ethereum is trifurcating to three things. There's the Ether asset, there's the Ethereum technology, and then there's the Ethereum mainnet blockchain. I have a weird perspective on all this because, like, I shouldn't say this too much, but I'm actually more bearish than I've ever been on ETH mainnet, the chain. Even though ETH the asset is doing better than it's ever been. I actually think it's close to the all-time high, right? And so I'm actually kind of confused by this. And I think at least one thing that's useful, and I agree with what you said, is like you should really remove the connection in your mind between like this thing is good and this asset is up. That I think will cause you a lot of heartache and a lot of stress and pain if you're stuck on that. And it's much more important to have just a sense of like what is real about this technology that makes me interested in it, and what use cases am I particularly interested in. Like the one that like I'm obsessed with right now is just payments, like people moving money. You know, using these systems like for payment use cases. That's like a singular thing. But there's so many other things you can build with blockchains. Like there's governance, there's prediction markets, there's so much cool stuff. But like you really laser in like what are a few things that really excite you, not just like what's the coin price at. Because if all you're doing is focusing on the coin price, you're gonna burn out, I think. And there's a lot of people that come and go in this industry. Like the prices go up, and you see them at the parties, and then the prices go down, and you don't know where they are anymore. And like it's not a good look or a good way of living. And so I would recommend avoiding that.
I'll just add one quick thing. As somebody, I think we've all been up and down in a few cycles. We're the old timers up here. But one of the reasons why we've gone through those cycles is that there just hasn't been clear regulation around the world. And when you think of the types of assets that have been popular, when you think of just price, like we talked about, it's just data moving around the internet and we assign value to this data. When you think of the types of asset classes that have been spiking, I think that whole story narrative is about to change as institutions and governments come on chain. I was in a meeting yesterday and somebody was telling me that they were talking to a government that was thinking about putting their CBDC on Ethereum. Right, so now you're seeing governments actually starting to think about it, but more broadly, I think a concept to appreciate is just the tokenization of more broadly as a shift. This week, actually, the NASDAQ applied to tokenize their entire equity portfolio on chain. So you're seeing like that's actually happening right now. So the tokenization, as far as everybody thinking about leveraging blockchain to move, like, you know, I used to write letters when I was a kid. Like we used to write letters, then we used to walk down put them in the mailbox, then a postman used to pick them up, drive them to the post office, sort it, and then put it on a plane. If you think of all those intermediaries before, like, my grandma got the letter, and now you think of me sending like a text message to my grandmother, like those intermediaries are about to be like disrupted through this concept of moving on chain. And there's like Liam said, there's so many great use cases emerging for it.
I would also just like massively plus one the importance of regulation. Like one analogy I've given in the past is that in the early 2000s there was like peer-to-peer file sharing. People figured out how to like share music files around and get access to like, you know, music videos or songs or movies or whatever illegally using like, you know, Pirate Bay or some torrenting. And like eventually that became so, you know, widely used and such a big problem that there had to be some rules and some norms in society that led to eventually now these massive companies that we have like Netflix and Spotify. Like, we went from like you buy the song, you buy the disc, you buy the whatever, you go to the movie theater, to now it's like you stream and you have subscriptions. And so the economic landscape for how you get access to the same thing, which is you want to watch music, you want to listen to music, watch movies or whatever, shifted completely because of a technological breakthrough. I think that was what's happening, and it's what's happened in crypto. We had all this stuff that was created that enabled money movement, and then we had this crazy kind of growth all over the world with Binance and Tether in this very unregulated kind of crazy way. The government was like against it for a while in the States, but now that the government is finally saying, okay, look, this is real, we can't pretend it doesn't exist, let's at least have some rules. That's what's going to enable the wave of like these regulated companies that are going to actually get the world on chain, like a Coinbase, for example. So like now is actually, literally because of this recent regulation, like basically because of the Trump administration, the whole industry is going to go through a very interesting new wave that if you haven't gotten into the industry yet and you're looking to, or you just want to double down on it, there's never been a better time, because now is a real adoption wave, as opposed to the past few years, which was a lot of technology build out coupled with these kind of trading tokens.
I'm just gonna, resonate here. The regulations are super important. I actually perceive this as one of the biggest risks here in Canada. Canada has this, tendency to watch for a very long time before something gets adopted in policy. We are now talking about technology. 5 years in the ages of the internet is like 100 years in human life. So if, we just keep sitting and take no action and observe, it's not going to be good. So it needs action.
Yeah.
I think when I entered the room earlier today, someone was talking about, I think was it you? I think you were saying that in Canada, like, we tend to be behind in regulation, and why stay in Canada and so on. One thing I would just mention is, even if you don't stay in Canada, something that you can definitely do is stay at least up to date with what's going on in Canada. You can do simple things. You can email your MP. You can even figure out who that person is. You can tweet about stuff. You can write blogs. Like, surprisingly little amount of work actually goes a long way. Even just sharing, like, hey, I'm a student. I'm this person. I went to this, job at this company in this state for whatever reason. But I like Canada, and I am from here, and I care about blah blah blah, so and such thing. I wish we had certain regulation. Just something simple on your personal website, just tweeting it, just care, as opposed to being like, screw it, I'm leaving and I don't care about my home. Just that is such a big thing that I would really strongly encourage you to do, because it's really hard to say stay in Canada even at the cost of your, you're gonna have less income, you're gonna have whatever it is that you're gonna have an issue with. Like, you can still care. So I would just really encourage that.
One point that I do want to revisit regarding CBDCs and countries wanting to put currencies on chain is the one thing that I'm so excited about my current role at KPMG is, I can't say too much, but like, we're having meetings with countries about very similar things. And so it's actually happening. Like, it's very much happening behind these doors, and these conversations are being had. And it's very, very exciting to see. And I actually had this question right here. So you guys are setting me up for a slam dunk here. Within the next 12 months, to keep Canada on the spotlight for AI and blockchain, because I agree. I think the revolutions for crypto is, it's like one day here is almost like a year, and I feel like 1 hour in AI is like a year typically. So if there was one regulation, I'd actually love to hear from all three of you for crypto, AI, or just generally, what do you think it should be, and what is stopping us from advancing further as a country?
Yeah, I'll try to be really quick, but one of the really weird things about Canada, and it's very different from every other country in the world, is that we have 13 provincial securities regulators and no federal securities regulator. So most countries in the world have a federal securities regulator that regulates the country. We have 13 that regulate different rules across each province. So we're regulated. Coinbase is a regulated exchange in Canada. It took us 2 years to get regulated. We're regulated in Ontario. They're a principal regulator. When we bring something to the OSC, our principal regulator, they need to shop that around behind the scenes with 13 legal teams. And I assume as you guys start working with legal teams, you'll realize it takes time. And so we have a massive coordination problem in Canada around just approving things. And these are not rocket science things that we want to approve. I would say, just to answer your question quickly around what we need in this country, I spent the last 2 days in Ottawa with government. I'll just go through the things that we're asking for. We're asking for the federal government to appoint an elected official to care about this technology and be responsible for it. As I mentioned, we have nobody in charge of crypto at the top of the House or even inside of elected officials. The second is we're asking for Evan Solomon's scope as AI minister to be expanded to include blockchain technology, not the finance part of the trading and the Coinbase exchange as the finance function. The blockchain technology itself, as we've been talking about, this horizontal layer of technology, is a serious piece of technology that needs to be understood as a technology, and we need Evan to take on that mandate. And the third thing we've asked for is that within the budget that's coming out is to ensure that we have a task force of people inside the government and industry leaders who really understand this technology, like Liam, to contribute to putting together a strategic plan for this country so that we can define what crypto means for us. Every other country around the world is defining what crypto means for them and how they're going to use it, and we don't have a plan right now. And so we can't coordinate and sequence change because we don't know what change we want to make possible and when. And so we've been talking about crypto for a long time in Canada. Banks have had teams thinking and researching crypto for years. Governments have been doing research. The Bank of Canada had 50 people looking at a CBDC. That team's been disbanded, but every government agency has been going through a learning curve, and now it's really the time for us to take action. And to do that, we need leadership from Mark Carney, and we need leadership from Evan Solomon, and we need leadership from Minister Champagne in Finance to really start putting actions into mandates and into funding actual education and coordination across the government.
Yeah, I don't have a lot more to add. I think Lucas, like with Stand with Crypto and everything, is like so on top of this. The one thing I would just add to that is I would plug there's this organization called Build Canada. I think it's on buildcanada.com. That if you don't, does anyone here know about Build Canada? Two people? Oh my God. Okay, okay.
Wow, we got some work to do.
Yeah, you guys have got to check out this website, buildcanada.com. It's basically just like, what should Canada do to be more innovative, more business friendly, and more like just on the cutting edge of both like technology and like common sense regulation to kind of grow the economy. It's actually a very, very well done website. It's a ton of entrepreneurs, like all the greatest hits of like the CEOs of the companies you probably work at. Like, I really would encourage you guys to check this out, click through it, go to the memos, go to the newsletter, tell your friends about it. It's been really a concerted effort by a lot of great entrepreneurs in this country to try to communicate reasonable policies that the country could adopt. And like I said earlier, like you actually have a remarkably loud voice. Like just put on your website, call your MP, send an email. Like the one in Waterloo, her name is Bardish. Like just spam her inbox with thoughts you have about where we should take this region and this country. I think honestly, my take on this country is like a lot of times people are just shy and they don't speak up. You kind of complain a lot that we suck, but we don't just say, here's what we can do to make it better, and we don't just do it. So, sorry, I'm going on a rant, but I would really encourage you guys to like just check out this website and kind of speak up.
So if you've never emailed your MP, try it. It's an experience on its own. I can recommend that, actually. I wanted to ask you, Lucas, is that written somewhere as like this appeal to the government? Is this written somewhere as an open letter or something? Like I would sign this. This is, the sound is actually amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's been something we've been advocating for with members, of Parliament. I did write a blog about it that we share with all MPs. We have an industry association. We have two industry associations in Canada. One is called the Web3 Council, and one is called the Canadian Blockchain Consortium. But they're pivoting to a Bitcoin focused. And we did write submissions to the budget, not to get into that mechanics of government, but industry can submit proposals to the government to include changes within the budget. When things are in a budget, then it's kind of becomes real in Canada and people can do it. It becomes part of their job. And so there's a budget coming out soon, as you may know, and everyone around the country who is focused on innovation, focused on change, is all lobbying right now to ensure that the things that they want to happen in the government are included in this budget. If they're not included in the budget, they're kind of parked for could be years. And so we're really keen to make sure that in this budget, the government acknowledges blockchain technology. They've never publicly acknowledged that this is an important part of our economy, an important fabric of the ecosystem. We've never had any public commentary really from the government on why this is important. And so I think it's time that the Canadian government formally acknowledge that this is a real thing and we need to do something about it. And that means we need to put money behind it. And people, smart people, and their time and effort and mental horsepower to coordinate and actually drive the change that we want. So it is out there. There's lots of folks that have been advocating for it, writing papers and submissions. Yeah, we're doing media. We're doing all the things that we want to do to put as much pressure on the government to put pen to paper and get things done.
I just quickly will answer the question, which I did not. So my dream piece of regulation is actually the Canadian denominated stablecoin. I think that it's really important because if Canada doesn't have one, consider the consequences, right? Economy will be happening on chain. Canadian capital will be participating in this economy on chain, but bound through another currency. I think that, that's not what Canadians deserve.
Can I just say one more thing? Sorry, I just forgot to mention, stablecoin, acknowledging this concept of federal prudential regulation of stablecoin is the #1 ask. You can go read this memo that Liam and I worked on. So right now, our securities administrators are trying to regulate stablecoins as a security, and that doesn't happen anywhere else in the world. What happens the rest of the world is governments have done public consultations. They've gone out to their public and they said, hey, what do you think this thing is? Every single public consultation that's come back in the UK and Europe and Asia has come back and said, oh, this thing's, the stablecoin thing is a payment instrument. And so, okay, if it's a payment instrument, then typically it'd be regulated by a payments regulator, which is Payments Canada under the Bank of Canada. And so if we actually want banks and institutions and pension funds and all the boring parts of traditional finance to take this seriously, we need stablecoins to be thought of and regulated and treated as a stablecoin. And that's what the Genius Act was in the US. It was this attempt to define exactly what a stablecoin was. And just one more quick comment, there's a Clarity Act that we expect to be passed this year or early next year that is going to clarify what the definitions of crypto assets are. What type of crypto assets are there and who should regulate them? And that's the foundation, like a first principle foundation of at least agreeing on what is the thing.
Yeah, and the reason why this website has a tweet thing that you can share is because the way these people decide on what things to push in Ottawa is if they can say, hey, all these constituents of this region seem to want this thing. And if you go and you say, I want this thing, then they're going to have a lot of collateral to be like, hey, we should do this thing. The problem right now, like I said, is people aren't speaking up, which plays into the issue. So again, I just reiterate the same thing, be loud about your thoughts on this stuff if you want Canada to embrace crypto.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Go to Stand With Crypto Canada, and there's a button there, I believe, just to write to your MP. And I'll say it one more time. I think a lot of kids, even at Waterloo Blockchain, would love to help out with study groups, do whatever we need to do, because we've seen how easy it is to contribute in the States. And we've talked with Keith Ammon there, who's doing great things for New Hampshire. And we actually indirectly helped there. So we would also, me personally and some members in the club would love to help regulation, whatever's needed, at least let the youth have a voice. And I think with that being said, we were supposed to end about 20, 30 minutes ago. I don't want to end this conversation, but please feel free to come down and we can continue this conversation. I just have few people here. I know we need to start cleaning up. So please come down and ask some questions. I was going to do a Q&A with a mic, but I think it's better if we just have people come down and ask some questions. But this way we can start wrapping up, and I can keep it fair to everybody who's volunteered their time. Again, I wish I could keep this going, but this was a great night and great conversations. I appreciate all of you coming out here. It means so much. And I would also like to say, we want to do this at least one time every year, or once or twice every year. So obviously you all are invited again. Would love to have you. We can do a full day, and we'll keep in contact. But the conversations have been great. And one more time, let's have a big round of applause. All right, feel free to make your way down and ask some questions. Thank you so much.
Can I ask a question on the mic?
Yeah.
Can I just ask a question to you guys real quick? So the wave of IPOs with crypto companies kind of like publicly, Coinbase in 2021. Since then, it hasn't really been like a big talking point or what people are interested in, but people are pretty interested in trading stocks. So what is exciting for you guys coming up on IPOs?
I think for me, the exciting part is that IPOs are happening in general for the crypto industry. They have been happening, but we also had many incidents where, crypto businesses were debanked, and these two sides of the world, didn't always play well together. And I think that actually is really good that, Coinbase and other projects are paving the path. And I think that we will actually see many more coming in 2026.
Yeah, I would just say that's part of the game is democratizing access to finance. And right now, if you want to raise securities, you need fancy lawyers, millions of dollars, and years of work. And it's just another example of how this system is unfair to innovators around the world. Innovators should get access to capital. If they have good ideas, they should get access to capital. And crypto is going to form like a new the ICO phase was a good experiment. I think people are getting serious now around doing this the right way, in a way that governments will be okay with, and that means just disclosures and helping people understand exactly what the risks are, and that's something like ICO market didn't really do a great job at doing.
Okay, thoughts on WonderFi getting acquired by Robinhood?
It's being recorded. Yeah, I mean that. Yeah, I mean, look, there's yeah, I think it is. There's a lot. Yeah, I don't know. There's. I'm happy for Dean and WonderFi. It's. I think the WonderFi has gone through a big they've had a big journey, and I think it's a good exit for them. And I'm glad that the technology and the team's sticking around in Canada.
I think we're going to see more of these apart. I don't know if we'll see more. Because that's the conversation with Temple, right? That you're choosing to build your own L1.
It's always are you going to build or buy, right? And if you decide to build, then you need to know what you're doing.
People kind of fail at building.
Yeah, they can, right? So I actually think that we will see more out of jobs. It will not be Robinhood. Robinhood. That's why it actually piques your interest, right? You know what Robinhood is. You know that it's massive, and now they have a chain. If it was a random coffee shop down the street, you would actually need to be there. So we will see very soon.
How's a random coffee shop down the street related to crypto?
Well, if they wanted to have a chain, I don't know. Before Robinhood decided that they want to have a chain, they also might have not been.
Another way to answer that question is once the government actually provides clear rules, we're going to see more international competition coming into Canada. Canada is the third most crypto-aware country of everywhere that we operate in the world. We have some of the most technically savvy audience. We have over 5 million Canadians on crypto. So it's huge market, even though we're small relative to other geos. So I think as the rules become clearer, we'll see more competition, which is helpful.
I guess it's starting with payment infrastructure. Do you know Helium?
wondering if Coinbase will ever get like.
Yeah, because they know we're make sure that I think next year we'll have Yeah, like the government doesn't want undue risk and like speculation. They don't want Canadians losing their money. So like a normal, boring, like instrument that they understand really well. All the regulations are clear, and I think they kind of corral the cowboys and got people regulated, and now there's a group of regulated companies in Canada that are starting to do shit as well. So we're starting to move a little bit faster, and certainly like there's, I mean, I think this like showed this publicly, like there's about 14 or 15 projects that we're bringing into Canada through our regulators that we've like, they know it. We presented our roadmap to our regulators versus like absolutely.
Hey, Lucas, my name is Mo. Quick question. Do you only take students or do you only take students or can I like general public?
Yeah, general public can join. Like, I think it's really useful. Like, we have 4 kids in the parade, and it's really just obviously we prioritize students. But at the end of the day, if somebody can help and they're passionate about helping students,
I'd just say like Shopify is
wow, I said it. I've done public speaking for like several years. I'm sure it is.
So do I just log in?
That's a great question. I'd say like authenticity is the key. So like being authentic and about yourself. You're not exaggerating things. You're trying to be funny if you're not funny. And trying to be smart. That is just so awesome. As soon as I get this sense of like somebody's like messing with me, it's like if I don't like have a thing like I'm not doing right now. So for me it's like the people who are winning these the people who are like you, I mean I'm sure this is me, and it's done. It's fucking this, I'm really this, this is what I'm really good at, this is what I like. You believe what I'm helping right now, you can help me use my voice and be that talking. That is good.
我不要在照里头拍的呢。 你就觉得在这个位置跟他讲话吗？是不是？听不到呢。
I wouldn't be enthusiastic. Yeah, be yourself. I mean, if you're entrepreneurial, I guess it's simple and so complicated. I'd say like, I'd say, the team is legit, right? Like, we're very good, and I do this all the time. I would ask you a question like, tell me something that you know a lot about, I don't know. What's that for you? What is the thing that you know a lot about me? So I was in
It's really easy, like, if you care, just like watching YouTube videos